This week I've managed to get sick again, but I have an illustration to do, so I don't have time for that and I need to work around it. So I'm afraid today I'm going to be filming in bed, but hey, you've got to do what you've got to do. So the first thing I did is I just outlined this and then started sketching on the paper. Normally what I'll do is I'll sketch on tracing paper first, just so that I can get all my mistakes done on the tracing paper, and then I can transfer everything and make it look really neat on the paper. But today I was in a hurry and I was pretty confident with this one. I knew how it was going to look. It wasn't particularly complicated, so I just outlined it straight on the paper, and since it's pretty much going to be in pen, any mistakes that I did make were going to be covered up very soon with black ink, and no one was going to be able to see them. So I didn't see the points in making the whole process longer than it had to be, so I just kept on drawing everything on the paper, making sure that I was happy with it. The tail drove me nuts. I was originally going to have the tail curving around the outside of the ship and then holding onto the, it's not a porthole, I've forgotten the word for it, but the hole that the cannon goes through. I looked this up, I know what the word is, but I just can't remember what it is right now, and that wasn't working, so eventually I just had to change the way that the tail was hooking on to the side of the ship. One of the first things I wanted to get drawn were the ropes, just because I knew that once I started filling in the night sky, I was worried that I would accidentally mess up if they weren't very clearly outlined. So I outlined all the ropes and then started adding all the texture for the night sky, which was very fun. Although it probably does look quite repetitive and boring, I love this part. Anything where I'm adding texture and I can just switch my brain off and just let my hands do the work, I love it. I find it very therapeutic and relaxing. So this part was my favorite, and at first I'll just do guidelines just to give myself an idea of the direction that I want to follow, because otherwise it's very easy to get 5 minutes in and then you realize that the sky's doing this weird swirly thing where it's going in different directions. So just doing rough guidelines gives me an idea of the shape that I need to follow, and then I can fill it in and be a lot more accurate. And the main thing that I needed to try and do is try and make it so that it was a lot lighter around the moon, so that it would look like it was glowing. I could still cheat a little bit by adding some white ink later on and to make the edges softer, but for the most part I wanted the black ink to do as much of the work as possible. So I filled everything in and then went over it a second time to make it a lot darker the further from the moon that it was. Drawing the moon was the part that I was the least looking forward to. It's the kind of thing where it's so easy to add too much texture and then it just looks like a weird planet in the background. But I thought, you know what, I'll just go in with my smallest pen, I'm sure it will do the trick. And I just try to reassure myself in the back of my head that, look, Claire, it's fine. If you mess up, you have white ink and you can cover it up. But as it turned out, I was quite happy with the moon in the end, especially with the way I got it to look like it was glowing once I added the white ink later on. So like most things, it's never as bad as I think it's going to be in my head once I get started on it, just because a lot of the time it's 90% fear, and then once it's done you realise, oh, that wasn't actually that bad. So I was very pleased with the moon. And then I started working on Elwyn. This part was very fun. It actually drove me nuts how long I had to look for different references, because it's very easy to find pictures of people sitting on chairs or walking or dancing, but for this particular pose I needed something where it was the person was leaning forward and there was that kind of tension in your back. And when you're sitting on a chair, if you're sitting with your back straight, the muscles aren't going to be doing the same thing, and I couldn't find anything that would give me a good reference of how muscles in the back are going to be behaving. And skeletons I'm fine with, I've got that pretty mapped out in my head, but back muscles, I still can't see that in my head when I'm drawing, so I do still need references for that. But eventually I did find something, and I was able to use that as a guideline to make sure that I drew the back correctly. And once that was done, the rest of the drawing pretty much fell into place. It was just drawing the ship, drawing the cannon, drawing the ropes, and then the moon and the sky, which was my favourite part easily. I know this is the part that would normally bore most people to tears, but I loved it. And this is the part where I should have used proper paper, but painting tape was the only thing that I had, and like I said, I was sick. It wasn't like I could just nip down to Hobbycraft, and I needed to work. So I worked around it, and it did rip the paper a little bit, not rip it, but kind of slightly shred the surface. Overall, I'm not concerned, just because that part isn't going to be visible at all. The drawing is going to be scanned, and then the only thing that's going to be visible is the actual drawing. But it just annoyed me because it was something that if I just thought ahead to get proper art tape, it wouldn't have happened. But overall, I was very, very happy with the illustration, and just pleased that I was able to get something done on a sick day. So that is the final drawing. I'll have the link to Elwyn's Mermaid down in the description box. It should be out by now. You'll see the videos for both illustrations up on this channel, and I'll have a new video for you soon. And as usual, if you like my videos and want to see more content, feel free to follow me on the mailing list. Do not subscribe to me on YouTube. That way you get everything sent directly to your email, and I'll have a new video for you soon.